that Agni Kai shit is such a banger. The only rules for this list is no Korra stuff will be included, and I'm using purely only the show and comics that take place after the show. Also, most of the characters I list are mostly the relevant ones within the story, so don't come in the comments asking where is that random fire foot soldier that Sokka fought in episode 16 at, like, bro, we don't care. Oh, and lastly, some placements could change depending on certain contentions that will be mentioned throughout the video. Links to Chad, True, and Arrow's channels will be provided in the description as they help me make the best tier list I possibly could, along with Zong, but bro doesn't have a channel, but he's gonna get a shout out anyway. With that being said, ladies and gentlemen, enjoy. Firstly, in the question mark tier, we have Hama and essentially all the masters. Zhang literally doesn't do anything. Paku and Gyatso don't do enough to really put them anywhere on the list. And Hama's bloodbending would technically allow her to beat anybody that isn't an Avatar or Katara. But realistically, in terms of stats, she's just above most of the fodder characters, but anyone relative or stronger than Katara should slam her. Which is why she's in the question mark tier, as she's either at the top of the list or at the bottom of the list. There's no in between. Now for the first actual tier, we have D tier, and from weakest to strongest we have Sokka, Mai, Jet, Suki, Ty Lee, and Zhao. These are essentially what I consider to be the fodder characters of the verse, since they don't really do too much. Sokka, Mai, and Jet all suffer from no feet syndrome and don't really have any arguments to put them above anyone higher. Zhao was the first main villain of the series besides Zuko and was considered to be pretty powerful, even more powerful than Book 1 Aang. So one could argue Suki and Ty Lee probably just get one shot, and anybody that gets hit by Zhao's blast in this tier are pretty much done for, but I know there's going to be some people in the comments that may mention Ty Lee's pressure points. However, stat wise, she hasn't shown anything too impressive to really show that she could just like outspeed Zhao and just straight up do this. So honestly, it's really more of a situational thing, but I think Zhao is clearly the physically strongest of the tier. In C tier, we have Piandao, the Swamp Benders, Azula during the final Agni Kai, and Katara. Sokka Sensei was able to fight amped firebenders during the comet, so naturally he should be above Zhao. The Swamp Benders gave the Book 2 Avatar crew a difficult time, with them even teaming up and still kind of losing. So Piandao more than likely just gets overwhelmed by the Swamp Benders, since there's really no notable way for him to even damage them. Although Katara loses to the Swamp Benders, we know Katara improves every single day up to Sozin's Comet, and was implied by Iroh to be the deciding factor between Zuko versus Azula. I think it's pretty reasonable to say that end of Book 3 Katara would slam the Swamp Benders, and we know Azula and Katara essentially draw in the final episode, so they are here by proxy. In C+, we have Boomy and some rando who fights Toph herself, and Zuko. Now, this tier is hands down the most frustrating to talk about, as the placements on this list really depend on your opinion on Zuko versus Toph, which, to be honest, I think is the most difficult topic within the Avatar community to answer, and I don't currently have a concrete answer to that matchup myself. These characters should just be in a similar tier though, since Zuko bops unstable Azula, so by proxy he's a tier above her, and Toph's earthbending is stated to be superior to Aang's, which could block even Ozai's firebending. Though, take the scaling with a grain of salt, because if Toph was really this strong, she'd probably help Aang in that final fight in the first place. Zuko as well knows how Toph fights and her weaknesses, and naturally goes for the opponent's feet when fighting them. So naturally, I think Zuko would have an advantage against Toph, and it would be a bad matchup in this case. However, then the question comes, can Toph's raw power overcome Zuko's ingenuity? I think this topic regardless is super contentious again, and whoever you think wins really just changes Zuko being at the top of this tier or at the bottom, as Boomy along with this rando that Toph fights scale to Toph. So if you think Zuko beats her, then he beats them, and vice versa. Now in B tier, we have Combustion Man, Base Aang, and a hypothetical peak Azula, along with the Wolf Spirit and Appa. Combustion Man should just be above everyone before him, since both Toph and Zuko never really did anything too significant to him, and even Aang himself barely could do anything when he did fight him. However, we know Aang does become strong enough to take on Ozai himself, and had a legit opportunity to finish him off, but just doesn't, and in character Aang is a pacifist, so he doesn't use his abilities to the fullest. So technically Aang could be higher on the list, but in character this is where Aang would be. Then we see after the Ozai fight, Azula pretty much bops Aang along with Team Avatar are in the comics, then in that same comic, the wolf spirit then bodies them and Appa bodies that same wolf spirit. The scaling is pretty straightforward here. Also, just to note that this Azula is technically a stronger one shown in the comics, as it's implied that she's still kind of insane in the comics. So obviously a stable Azula while also being amped by the comet would naturally make her stronger. And I know technically this version of Azula doesn't exist, and I know some of you may find that to be a cop-out, but I mean, we've just never seen Azula at her hypothetical peak, and I think it's fair to say where she would be at her best. Now in the next tier, we have essentially the strongest dudes who aren't avatars, that being Iroh and Ozai. These two are the characters that are looked at as the masters in comparison to the students that are the Avatar squad. Ozai is definitely above Iroh though, since he has better bending, and Iroh's statement implies he can't even defeat him, so that cornball argument does not work here. Sorry Iroh fanboys, cry in the comments. Anyways, in S tier we have essentially any character that can tap into the Avatar state. So Aang's pre-comet Avatar state is at the bottom due to not having his chakras open, while Roku's Avatar state should scale to Aang's open chakra Avatar state, therefore he's above his, pre-chakra unlocking. Aang in the comics can't beat General Old Iron with his armor on, and needs Toph's metal bending students to pull off a win. And we know Old Iron is stronger in the past, and Yang Chen would then go on to fight past Old Iron in his armor for an entire night, and her Avatar state proceeds to peel off his armor and then one-shot him. And at the top of the verse, we have Kyoshi. She performs what is deemed to be one of the most powerful feats in the series, and probably the most powerful feat we've ever seen from an Avatar, generating enough energy to destroy a small country. The Avatars gained the previous knowledge of other Avatars, therefore Aang should be stronger than Kyoshi, but that's kind of shaky since you don't automatically gain the knowledge of previous Avatar users. You have to actually discover that knowledge yourself, and you don't automatically just get the powers of every other Avatar plus your own off the bat. Like, what? I think that's what Avatar was initially going for, but then that just gets contradicted with actual feats presented. But yeah, with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, that is my Avatar The Last Airbender power scaling tier list, and let me know down in the comments what you guys thought of this, and let me know if you guys think I should make a motherfucking Korra tier list. I'm gonna get jumped.